All right. All right. Hello, everybody. Today's workshop is going to be about 2D game development with Unity, as we see in the slideshow. And I'll just be doing a brief summary of how 2D development works in Unity. All right, so as stated earlier this week, or most of you might have gotten the email that the requirements you need, the different things you need to install. So you need to have Unity Engine installed, a code editor that can either be Visual Studio 2019 or whichever version of you have, or Mono Developer, which comes with Unity, and any other code editor you prefer to use, and just some basic knowledge of C# programming, which will help with game development. So what we're going to discuss in this lesson, on this workshop, will be going to start with game design and mockups. That will just be you designing the game on paper, for example, and then we'll go into how to import and create different assets you can use for the game. And after we do that, we'll start making the game. And after the game is at a point where it's playable, we can start doing GUI design, main menu management, and then add audio and music and just some polishing of the game, and then eventually export the game. All right. Any questions or any problems? I think everything is all right. All right.
It's all good. Can you go on?
Just wait. Can you just maybe introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. My name is Chibozeko. Yes, my name is Chibozeko. I'm a game developer, and I work with the Game Jam Plus Africa, and I'm an organizer. So soon we'll organize a game jam later in the year. So this workshop is to teach the participants how to create different aspects of a game. And this is the third week of doing it. All right. So usually I participate in different game jams, sometimes on a monthly basis, some online. And usually I have a specific procedure I use when designing. So this is the procedure I use. So the first stage is design, where you design the level, the GUI. This can just be drawn up or something you use maybe to design GUI. So I first start with that, and then I go on to collecting the assets, which include the designs of the characters, the sound effects and the music, and the background images which you use in your game. So, and then after that, I start making the game. And do that, we add the sprites to the scene, we write code, apply game physics and mechanics. After that part, we move on to improving the UX, the user experience. So that you use with adding animations, different sound effects, maybe improving the mechanics like jumping or shooting or however your game is created, and maybe updating some colors and the look and feel and the theme of the game, just to polish it up a bit. Then I move on to the GUI, which includes the main menu, the settings menu, and the different game settings that you can set. And that can also include the credits and maybe the tutorial how to play the game. And then at the end, in the end, we finish the game by just making sure everything looks good. We'll export it to the platform we use. Either it's going to be a mobile game, a console game, or a PC game, whichever. And then you also add your different logos and your descriptions of the game. All right. Now we move on to game design and mockup. Is there any questions? Anything unclear?
Yes, there is a question. Can you tell me? Ashwell just asked, so in step 1, when you say you design the GUI, would that be in like Inkscape and Canva, for example? That's what we want to know. What do you mean when you say GUI?
I just mean like how the different menus would look. For example, on your start screen for a game, where it would have start, options, settings, help, that type of design. At the design stage, it doesn't have to be designed on a computer. It can even just be drawn out.
Cool.
All right. Okay. So as I described just now, so the design stage is just used to decide on the gameplay, the type of game you're gonna create, whether it's gonna be level-based or an ongoing game like Temple Run or Subway Surfers, where it's just ongoing, or level-based where you have to pass a specific level to reach the next one. And then you have to decide on the point system and the rules, like how you're gonna count the points, what the goals are of the game, and what the specific rules, which rules you used in the game development. And then also thinking about power-ups, lives, damage, like if it's an action game, what type of things can damage the player, or what the player abilities can do, and yeah, just different aspects of the game. And then when we move to designing the player, you have to decide what the player can do in the game, what rules they have, and that includes the enemies and the other elements of the game. And then you also have to think of what type of background you have and the different platforms you use. Like, since we're going to be using a platformer, we're going to be using like a rock platform, for example, and maybe the background image can be like a sunny day or just things, aspects like that. And then the designing of the GUI would be the in-game GUI, where you would have the pause and play button, for example, and like the menus where you'd have like maybe a menu for the different levels you're gonna play or the different settings you're gonna have. And as you do this, you should also account for the sounds and visual effects and the different animations which you wish to create. All right. So on this tutorial, I was thinking of a game called Rock Warrior, where you have this little warrior here with a spear, and the different animals. Like on top, you can see I think it's a cow, and then on the side you can see an ox and an elephant or a mammoth. So you'll be able to jump on these platforms and shoot them for specific points, but they also shoot back at the player. So they can also shoot you and damage you and can actually kill you. So yeah, we'll just be designing a simple platformer like this. You'll be able to jump on the different platforms and probably reach something at the end that can complete the level. All right. Any questions so far?
No question on the chats.
All right. Okay. So now we're going to start with actually doing things in Unity. So what we're going to do is open the Unity Hub, which you should have installed. Here I have mine over here. And on the Unity Hub, you have the different sections, which is projects, installs, community, learning, and the projects. So I do many projects, so these are just examples. So what you're gonna do is first click on new to create a new project. I'm gonna do a 2D project, and I'll call mine, Rock Warrior, and save it to, just where I usually save my games, and I'll create. So it takes a while to start up, so just bear with me.
Okay, while you're waiting. So this part normally does take long, I suppose, depending on the system's hardware as well. Usually for us, like I got a gaming laptop and it still takes that long. So yes.
All right. Let's start it up. So let me just go through the different aspects of the Unity engine. On here, the top right, we have our sample, or this is the place in the hierarchy where we have all our game objects, where whenever we add different things to the game, it will be under here, over here. And then on this side, this is where you keep all your folders and where you put all your project assets. So as you see, there's already a folder called assets with a folder called scenes, which are the scenes. Scenes are the different, how would I say, windows for the game. So usually you separate them by either level or by the different menus that you would use. And this blue area is where the game, where you can view the game, and on the side on scene, this is where you add things and where you actually develop. This game window is to see how it plays out. And on the side here is the inspector. So if I click, let's say, camera, you can see the different properties of the camera, like the transform, the position it has, and then the camera, the different camera attributes that you can change and use. And you can add different components to an element you select. All right, so let me go back to the slides. So as we create and import assets, you would either, as our organizer Ronica did the past 2 weeks, that you can design the different graphics on Inkscape. There are other applications like GIMP, Photoshop, pixel art, and then you can also find different gaming sounds and music. Some of the links are put in our resources channel, and you can create a nice logo, and you have to find a good palette and theme to make your game look cohesive. As Tutaleni had said from last week's workshop that the theme of the game is a big aspect to help people actually want to play a game. So we're going to start with the assets folder, and we're just going to add these different folders. These are the usual folders you need when you're developing a game. So to do that, right-click on assets, which I'll do it alone. So right-click on assets, you go on create, and you create a folder. So one of the folders we use are the sprites. So I'm just going to keep on adding different folders we need as shown in these slides. And yeah, one by one, you just keep on adding them. So I'm going to add script. Add video. Add I'm forgetting which ones. Animations and other assets. All right. All right. Once we've done that, we have to import the assets we're going to use. So I uploaded a package, a zip file that we're going to use for the assets. Let me find it on my desktop. In the assets folder, I'm just going to copy each of them in their respective folders. So what I'm actually going to do is right-click on the assets folder and press show in Explorer. So I can just copy and paste it here. All right. Any questions?
I think we're good so far, but someone asked a question, what is the name of this platform? Although I'm not sure what they were referring to. Because it's using Unity, so I'm not, yeah.
All right. Okay. So I'm just gonna copy the different assets. So I'll copy the audio to the audio assets. Copy fonts. Okay, well, we just have one font. And the script. And lastly, the sprites. All right. Minimize this. So I can close it. So now it's just busy importing. And when it's done, you'll find them all here by the assets folder. So I copied a lot of things, so it will take some time. All right, so if you go into the different folders, you can see all our audio is there, our font is there, themes, scripts are there, and different sprites, which also have some GUI elements. All right. So once we're done importing, we have a specific color palette that I was planning to use for this game. So you can just enter these hexadecimal color codes to the project, and yeah, we'll be using them later on in the game. So now let's get to what we're here for, to actually make the game. So we're going to create a new scene, and we do that by right-clicking on the scenes, create a scene. So we'll go on scenes, right-click, create, and find scene here. We're going to call the scene just game. All right, and we open the scene by double-clicking on it, and we've added it. So now next, we're gonna set up all the sprites, because all the different sprites have different sizes, so we have to change them accordingly and use them in the game. So I'm gonna go to sprites, and what I'm gonna do is just drag each of the sprites we need and just set their sizes. So I'll start with the background, and what you do is actually click on it, and you'll see on the inspector, and we just go to pixels per unit. And so the way the pixels per unit works is you usually do it 1 to 1, for example. So if as you see, I don't know if you can see here, down here, our background is 500 pixels by 281 pixels. So usually you would change this pixels per unit, you would change it to what the size is there. So because it's 500, I'll change it to 500, for example. But because this is a background, we don't want the background that small. So I wrote down the numbers. So I'll say background is gonna be 25 to make it bigger and cover the whole screen. So usually at this point, you just kind of fiddle around with the numbers to see which size you want in the end. See background, and yes, just move the background around. To fit the screen. Let me check in game preview to see how it looks. Yes, it fills the whole screen. All right. Next, we're gonna do the rock platform. So I'll just do the same. Or let me ask if there are any questions or anything wrong.
None on chat, but I'm not sure if anyone would like to ask anything. Everyone's audio is off. I think we're good.
Right. Okay. So I'm just gonna resize each of the different sprites we have. So I'll just be looking here. So for the rock platform, I set my size to 32. I'll set it to 32 and apply. If I bring it out, okay, can't see it without the background. I'll remove the background for now. Yes. So this is the size I would like for this. Next, I'll use the first cattle. It's quite small. And I change this to 50. See? Yes, the cattle is better looking now. I'll do the same for mammoth. Mammoth, I said 30. So click on the mammoth again. Set it to 30. Yes. And then with the cattle, the ox, I put it at 40. Change this to 40. Nice. And I'll take the warrior. I'll use this one. Change this one to 100. Just as it is. All right. So I'll change the other sprites we use as we go along. So for now, as long as our main characters are there, it's all right for now. Okay. So feel free to ask any questions if you're stuck at a point. All right. Next, I'll create the canvas. So, okay, actually, we don't need to use any of these right now. So I'll just select all of them and just delete them for now. All right. So I'm gonna create a canvas over here, and you do that by pressing this plus on next to the hierarchy. Press it, and we choose UI, and in the UI we find canvas. All right. So now we have the canvas property here. Actually, here in this top right corner. So we're just gonna change some of the different properties for it to size. So we're gonna change the render mode to camera, so it fits the camera that we're using. And now it's asking which camera we use, and we use the camera up here, the main camera. So what we're gonna do is click on this camera, click on canvas, and then drag the main camera onto where it says render camera over here. So now you can see that it's gonna use the main camera. So after this, we remember. So now we're gonna scale the canvas according to the screen size we want for the game. So we're gonna use scale with the screen on canvas scaler over here. And we're gonna change the reference resolution to about 127 by 576. All right. And we're gonna expand it. But these camera properties, you only find them useful when you're actually exporting the game, and then you're gonna use them to scale your screen accordingly. So right now you won't really see a difference, but you'll see it once you export the game. All right. After the canvas, now we're gonna add the background. And what we're gonna do, if you guys are feeling stuck, you can always just read these notes on how to do it. So now what we're gonna do is gonna bring the background, put it here, and up here, there are different things you can use for the different objects. So as you can see, it has the hand here. That's just to move the camera around. And you have the move tool. So if you select an element, you can move it either horizontally or vertically. Or if you hold it from here, you can move it around. So I'm gonna move this in place somewhere here. See from here. All right. So now we have the background, but we're gonna be using many different backgrounds because, as you can see, if I zoom out, you can see that the camera only covers this area. So, and as the character moves, we'll be moving all around. So what I'm gonna do is just duplicate this background and fill it up. So I'm gonna right click on background, gonna go on duplicate, and we'll have a second one. I'll just move this one to the side. Do it right up the center. Then I'm gonna select both of them from here into duplicate again. So now duplicates and I can extend it upwards. All right. So now let me start talking about how the background works. So for example, if I add a different sprite, let's say just a block here, you can see it's here, but you can't see it in here. You can't actually see it on screen. And that's because of the layering that we use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the background elements to the background. And how we do this is by creating a sorting layer on the inspector. So we're gonna go under the sprite renderer, go to sorting, additional settings, sorting layer, and add a sorting layer. And once you add that, you can press this plus and add a sorting layer. I'm gonna name this one background. All right. Now that I've added it, what I'm gonna do is select the layer on the side and move it upwards so that this will be in the background and anything that has the default sorting layer will be in front of it. So now if I click on my background elements again and go to sorting layer, click background, now you can see the rock platform over here as it was added, as it's gone to the foreground now. All right. Does anyone have any problems with this part?
No.
All right. So let me go back to the slides. So as it describes here what we did, we added a sorting layer and moved it to the back. So next we're gonna create ground, the ground that the player will run on. So since we have our rock platform here, just gonna move it. So we'll put it here. Let me see how our camera is positioned. Yes, it's at the bottom of the screen. So put this here at the bottom of the screen. Roundabout. All right. So, let me mention another thing to how the camera works. So when you click on main camera again, and you go to the property called size over here that says 5, what this 5 represents is how many of a specific object can appear on the screen lengthwise and height. So for example, because my rock platform is 1 of 1, and how the camera works is in this central position where you see the little camera, that's the position 0, 0, as you can see. So starting from there, it counts 5 downwards. So if I, for example, set my position of my rock to, let's say, 0, 0, it would be at the center because it's aligned according to the center of the object. So if I move this by 1, let's say upwards, it will move 1. So, and if I move it by 5, it's at the top, as you can see right here. So that's the value we work on when we're using different sizes for this. So, okay, back to creating the ground. I'll move this back to the bottom. So what I'll do is I'll add a new element by clicking this plus, create empty, and I'll rename it ground. Underscore ground. And I'll put this rock platform into the ground. Or actually, before I do that, sorry, let me undo. I'm gonna move this ground to where our ground starts, which is at this bottom layer over here, around about here. Now, when I add this rock platform to this ground, I'll put this as 0, 0, 0. It will be bottom. Let me see if it's okay. It's a bit too low, so I'm gonna move the ground a bit higher so that you can see it in the screen. All right. So now what I'm gonna do is just duplicate this and have our whole screen filled with the ground, with the floor. So I'm just gonna duplicate, and you can duplicate using Control D. I'll just keep duplicating, say 40. So because this one starts at 0, 0, so to the right of it would be 1, 0. So I'll set the next one to 1, and you keep doing this for each of the sections. So I'll set this one to 2 till we have a full ground. Next one. While I do this, you guys are free to ask any questions. I'll add a few. Let me see. I'll add a few more. Right. So our whole floor is covered now. So next we're going to add a collider to the, well, let me briefly explain colliders. So when you have an object, for example, ground, you can add a component on the inspector side, and a component we'll be using is the physics, mainly the physics 2D component. So I'll go on physics 2D, and what we're using for this one is a box collider. So it's just a box collider is something you use to detect different collisions on the different elements of the game. So what I'm going to do, if you so now I'm going to edit the collider and set the bounds. So zoom in a bit. As you see, this green box represents where the box collides. So I'm just going to extend it for this whole area. Not a bit. Okay. So I'll keep editing this till the end. All right. So we'll see how this box collider works later on when we add another element. Go back to the slide. Did all of this. So now we're going to go to the player. Are there any questions on how to create the platforms?
None on the chat, sir.
All right. Okay, so next we're gonna work with the player warrior. And the two things that we need for the warrior are the box collider physics, and that's used for collisions, and the rigid body, which is gonna be used for movement, to move the player around. And we'll also add the player script, which we imported. So now I'm going to take from our sprites window here, I'm gonna take the warrior, which is RW warrior run 0. I'm gonna take this one, drag it here, zoom in a bit, and I'll just rename the warrior to, let's just say, player. All right. So now for the player, we're going to add the box collider as we did before. Here. And then we'll also add the rigid body 2D, which is here. Physics 2D, rigid body 2D. So once again, we're gonna edit the collider of the player. Quite hard to see here. But I just see the green line. Okay. I'm gonna disable this quickly so that we can see this clearly. All right. So I'm gonna edit the box collider here and just limit it to how big the player is. I'm just editing it. His feet are, and all right, we've got it. Now I'm gonna work on the rigid body. So most of the things you leave as it is. Only thing you change is the collision detection. You can change it to continuous, and the interpolate to interpolate. So I'm not too sure how to explain what the interpolate means, but it just kind of makes things smoother when you're working with the rigid body. All right. Now let me zoom out. So now at this point, we can just, if we press play up here, play, pause, it will display how the game will work. So if we just press play, see what we've done so far. All right, so the player automatically has gravity, so it will just fall. And because of the box colliders we added on the ground, it made the player stop there because it found that there's something on the ground. All right. So now what we're gonna work on next is the player script. So if you go to your assets folder here, go to scripts, find the script called player. And now this player script already has a bit of code, and you just double click it to open it. So now depending on your editor, it might take longer to start up. For me, I use Visual Studio, so it takes a bit long to start up, but yeah, until then, I'm free to answer any questions.
I suppose while waiting. So I'm trying to follow you through. I'm a bit behind here. You you added a canvas first and then you added the background.
Yes.
So the background is in the canvas or in the camera view?
No, the background is actually just in the normal view. The
Normal
canvas
view.
is going to be used later on.
Oh, okay, okay. Cause yeah. I'm a bit behind, but I'm following along. Don't worry.
All right.
Ah,
Open it again. All right. All right. So we've opened up the player script. So this is a bit of code I wrote already for some of the things we're going to use the player for. So I'm just briefly going to go through what each thing does. So some of the properties we need is the sprite renderer, which is just the thing that controls how the player looks. We have the rigid body that's attached because we're going to be moving the player. And then later on, we'll add some animation. So I just commented that out for now. So we're going to have different things like a weapon holder where he holds his spear. Going to have some things that control his speed, checking if he faces a specific direction, his health, it starts at 100, jumping speed, and all these values can be changed around to fit the way you want it to work. So the way scripts work in Unity is you usually have a start script, which is when you initially start the game or once the player is active, and there's some things you set, for example, health. You set the health to 100 when you start the game. And if you scroll down a bit, there's a function called update or fixed update. You can use either one of the two, where this function runs almost like every second or every frame that you use. So it's constantly running as the game goes. So it's different things you use in there, like for movement to check if there's movement each time, or if it needs to update a position of an element. All right. So the things I said, awake is also a function that you use it's similar to start, but it's usually used when, let's say, the element was disabled and enabled again. So it will go to awake rather than start. All right. So now let me see. So I'm gonna focus on the fixed update. So what we do here is we're gonna always sense or track the movement. And okay, before I get to that, I need to explain on Unity, there's a specific file that displays all the inputs you use. For example, if you're using keyboard, if you're using a controller, and you find that by going to edit and project settings. And in the project settings, you find different things, different aspects. So what we're focusing on is input manager. Now, in this input manager, open up X. This is where you store all the different values you've set for the controls. So for the horizontal value, you use the left and right, and the alternative is the A and D. So it's automatically set that way. You can change it if you want. And for vertical, you have up, down, and W and S. All right. So whenever we're sensing the horizontal movement, we're detecting if the user pressed the left and the right arrow, or if they pressed the A and D value. So there are many others you can change. For example, fire is use left control or the mouse button. So for now, I'm going to change the fire 1 button to the space bar, which is called space. Set that for now, which we'll be using for the player. And we'll just use the arrows for horizontal and vertical movement. All right, it's just some brief information we use for later on. So getting back to the code, so for horizontal movement, we're gonna check if the user pressed any of the horizontal keys like left or right, and we do that by doing float hors move, just our variable name, and we get the axis, which axis was pressed, which is the horizontal, left or right. And if it does detect if the user pressing those two, it will move it according to that. So vector2 is a way to represent the x and y values for the element. So we're just moving in the x direction in this one. So we move and we multiply it by the speed we set earlier. And the speed we set earlier was here, 5f. But you can change the values when we start testing. All right, so we do the same with the vertical movement. So we check if it moves vertically. And oh yeah, and before we do that, we check if we flip the players. So like if it's facing right, the player should face right. If it faces left, we actually change the sprite to flip it the opposite direction. So I'll get to that function later. So now we detect the vertical movement, which means jumping. So some code, this is just some code that to ensure it, like to check if it's on the ground, and if it's jumping, then it would move. So just move down a bit. Yeah, these are just different sections to check if the player is busy jumping, but it ensures that the person keeps going up. Then when it's still jumping, there's a specific, in classic games, whenever you jump, it jumps according to how long you press the jump button. So this is just doing that, checking if the player is still jumping, it will just keep on going up. And once the jumping period has stopped, then the vertical movement will just go to 0. So it will stop jumping and the player will start going down. Then the next function we use is the flip player. And it's just if the player is facing right, that whenever you flip, it will flip to the left. And if the player is facing left, it will flip the sprite to face left. So that's what we use our sprite renderer for, the SR that we spoke about earlier. And a function called is on ground. It's just to check if the player is on the ground so that it knows that it can, either if it was in the air and it checks, it will see if it's still in the air. If it doesn't sense any ground below it, then it will keep falling down. But once it senses the ground, then it will stop falling. So we do that with a raycast. It's just a beam that checks if there's a floor, and you can set it to any direction. And get hit is something we'll be using later on when, let's say, an enemy bullet hits a player. So it will just show that the player should get hit for a specific amount of damage and reduce the health on it. So something we do later is to add death music, but we'll do that at a later time. So I'm just going to minimize this. And now we're going to add this script to the player to see it like working in action. So what we do is we go here and we drag the player script and we put it onto the player, as you can see here. So once I drop it on the player, you can see, we scroll down, that we have the player script that we wrote over here. So for now, we don't have a weapon holder. We're going to add that just now. So I'm just going to do that, say save. Always remember to save. And now we're gonna play the game. See how it looks now. So now if I press left and right, it moves, the player moves. And as you see, if I'm going forward, it faces right. And if I'm going left, it faces left. So, and if I go up, we jump. This is a big jump. But yeah, so you can now jump with the player all around. So one thing you can do is just on the player script down here, you can just change the speed and the jump speed. So if I change it, let's say to 5 speed and press play again, now it doesn't jump as high as before. See. Change the speed. Let's make the player move a bit faster. So I'll say it's like 7. And now if I play it again, see he's moving faster than he was before. All right. So any questions? Change this back to
5. There was a comment here. It's from Ashwell again. He's saying, I assume the player is going down after jumping due to gravity.
Yes. Let me even show it. Okay, so what I'll do is let me just move the camera to the side so that you can, for example, see this. So for example, if I'm playing, now since we have a ground here, it centers that there's a ground. So let's say I jump off here, then the player is gone. So the gravity is automatically set. So whenever you jump on, or whenever you go up, gravity will bring it down automatically. So because there was nothing on the edge, the player will actually just keep going down. So yeah.
He's asking, where do you change the gravity?
Gravity. All right. So for the gravity, where we found the input on edit project settings, if we go on physics 2D on the side, it gives the gravity here. So you can actually set the gravity in X direction or Y direction. So they gave Unity already has the default value for gravity, which is negative 9.81, as we would know in physics in high school. And so, yeah, you can change the gravity here, but you can also change the gravity of the player, or the gravity that the elements experience. So, for example, on the player, if you go to their rigid body on this side, you can change the gravity scale. And this is where how much gravity affects. So if I change it to, let's say 0.5, so it uses like half the gravity. And if I press play, you can see now the player falls slower because the gravity has been altered. So you can alter the gravity on different elements themselves, or you can change the gravity value from edit project settings and here. Yes, all good?
I think so. Um, So would you want to change the gravity of the player in case you have another element that you might want to have fall slower?
Yes. So first we have the global gravity scale, which is a negative 9.81. And then for each element, we can change the gravity. But you can only change the gravity if the elements have a rigid body property, which we added when we made the player. So yeah, you can change the gravity scale of the specific person, of the specific element you use. So even like the ground can even have a gravity scale if we add a rigid body, and maybe the ground falls. Maybe you can use that if you're having, let's say, a game where things fall down. So you can change the gravity settings on individual.
Okay.
Right.
That's all.
All right. So yes, we've done here are some of the different values that I would use on the player. So we've done, we've added the player and added the player script. So now we're gonna move on to camera movement. So we want the camera to follow the player when they move. So when we move to the left or far left, the camera would move with the player as you would in normal games. So what we'll do is we have a script called camera movement from the assets. And let me just open it and just explain briefly. But you don't really change this code much because you can apply to many of your different games. So what this is, it just shows you have the camera speed, which is the speed at the camera will move with the player. You have the camera target, which is the player. And you have enabling the horizontal movement and vertical movement. So it's up to you if you want to enable the movement vertically or horizontally. And we have min and max y, and those values are just for us to limit how far the camera moves. For example, if the max, let's say x is bigger, then it will only move when the player is like far right, then it will start moving. So those are the values you can change a bit just to have better camera movement. So this code, this is just to gradually move the camera. Like whenever the player moves, the camera will also move its position. And this clamping, it just defines how far you want the player to be. So if the player must be on the left side of the screen more or on the right side of the screen. So you just clamp that using the minimum and maximum values. And then it will move the camera. So let me show you how that works. So I'll take the camera movement script and I'll add it to the main camera. So now we go on our main camera and we find, yes, our camera script over here. So here we set the values. So some of the values I like, for example, for the maximum X and Y, I usually put like about an 8. I'll put 8, as you can see, and I'm gonna enable both movements and I'll put the speed to 5. But you can decide what these speeds are. And then on the camera target, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the player from this side and drag it onto this camera target. So now it's gonna know what it's gonna follow. So I'm just gonna press save, play. Now as I move, you can see the screen moves with the player as well. Only later on when we add platforms, you also see how the camera moves vertically, but now you can just see moves sideways with the player. As you can see, as the player is moving, the player is mainly in the center and the camera follows. So if you change the values of minimum and maximum, it will maybe the player will be more on the left or more on the right. So you just have to find the different numbers you want to use. All right. Are there any problems with this part?
So good, yep.
All right. So yes, we just did this. I used the values 5, 8, 8. So now we're gonna create the weapon system, and that means the spear that the player is gonna give. So each of the different bullets, or let's say like spear or whatever the players shoot, will have a box collider and a rigid body to start with. And they'll use either the weapon script is for the player itself, because he holds the weapon, and then the bullet and enemy script is just for the things that are being shot. All right. So we're gonna start with weapon script, but before we do that, we're gonna add a weapon holder to the player. So I'm gonna select the player, right click on it, and add create empty. I'm gonna rename this to let's say spear holder. All right, and now we have the player here, and I'm just gonna move the spear holder to gonna select it and gonna move it towards the tip of the spear. So like somewhere here. You guys can see nicely. So I put it at the tip of the spear. And the reason I do that is, let me show you. If I look at the box collider of the player, you can see the end of it ends at the tip of the spear. So I want to put the holder right next to it because that's where the spear is gonna come out of, from the tip. And we don't want it to be clashing with the other box collider because both elements have box colliders. So sometimes if the box colliders combine with each other, they'll give a different effect. We'll see that later on. So here's the spear holder. We have the player. So let me just minimize these properties. And I'm going to add the weapon script. Weapon script, I'm going to put it on the player. So the player now also has the weapon script. So let me briefly explain what the weapon script does. So the weapon script has the fire point, which is the holder, the weapon holder, and it also has a game object bullet, so which is going to be the spear, which we'll add. And usually the weapon has different properties, like the damage the spear has, let's say the range it goes, how far you can shoot it, the fire rate, we can decide if it has infinite loot ammo or only has a specific number. So max ammo can be like 5, total ammo 10, and these are just different values for like a weapon, like the reload time. Let's say you shot and you need the reload time, and so on. So usually we set because it's full, we set the current ammo to the max ammo. So when we go awake, and in the update, we just check if for the reloading part, we see if it's busy reloading. If the weapon is busy reloading, it means you can't shoot it. So it will usually just skip everything that happens here. But once it finishes reloading, you can shoot whatever you have. So here we have, if current ammo storage is empty and there is no more ammo available, we reload the bullet. So like if you keep shooting and then it goes empty, you need to reload. So gonna start reloading, and until it does that, then you can't do anything. So if ammo is finished, we just show that ammo is finished, so you won't be able to shoot anything. So when you actually shoot the bullet, you're going to use the input button fire 1, which I changed earlier to be space. So if you press space, you can shoot an object. So once you press that, and yeah, then you'll be able to shoot. So the reload function, it's just where the reload takes place. You're going to wait a specific reload time so that you can't do anything with it. Then once you do that, it will deduct the current ammo, the total one. For shooting, all it does is it creates a bullet at the point, the firing point, the spear holder, and then it just creates the object there. So the bullet script will now move the object. So all this does is just create the object and leave it there, and then the bullet object will do the work. So now we can see this in action. So what I'm going to do is on the weapon script, we have the properties we need to set. So the fire point is the spear holder. So I'm just going to take the spear holder, put it here, and we'll leave the other values. We'll change them as we go. But the bullet prefab is the spear that we're using. So I'll go back to my sprite. Going to bring the warrior spear. But if you see, when I bring it, well, it is actually the exact size. And you just make sure 80. So I actually should change this to 80. All right. So now for the, let's start setting the spears. I'm going to call the spear. And I'm going to add the box collider. I'll add the rigid body. Yes. So now the box collider, I'm just gonna edit it real quick. Smaller. We did to the other elements. All right. Made it a bit smaller. And now I'm gonna make it in the box collider. You see an element called is trigger. So what that means is it's the one that's gonna trigger the collision detection. So if this object moves and it moves into, let's say it hits something, it will detect if it has hit something with a specific function. So we'll go into more detail on that. Okay. Spear still looks quite big, so I don't think I changed this. Let me see. That would actually make it smaller. All right, it actually should be on 100. All right. Back to the spear. We'll change the collider again. All right. Now moving to the rigid body of the spear. Because it's a spear and the player weight was 1, the player mass was 1, so the spear should be a bit lighter. So I'll say, let's say half of it, like 0.5. And the gravity we'll set later. I should make the collision continuous because it's always check if it's hit something and interpolate to just make it smoother. All right, so with the spear, I'm gonna add the script called bullet. Dragging and dropping. All right, and a brief look at the spear bullet. The bullet script is we'll just have the speed of the bullet, its rigid body, the thing that makes it move, and the bullet damage, how much damage it actually does. So as we said in the weapon, once we create the bullet with the instantiate, we create that bullet and just leave it there. And once it's created, it starts moving forward when it's initialized using RB velocity, and it usually moves to the right, but when it's flipped, it will move towards its left. All right. So the main thing that the bullet does is on trigger enter, because it's a trigger, so it will now detect. So we have the different enemies like the cattle, the ox, and the mammoth. So this is just some things that it does, that if it hits the cat, either of the animals, it will damage it with the bullet damage here. And once it hits the thing, it destroys itself. It disappears. What we'll do later on is have sound effects, add the sound effects, and add the animation. All right, so now let's see this. And before we do that, we actually, because the spear won't be here physically already, we have to take the element and make it a prefab so that it's only there once you call it, or once you instantiate it. So what we're going to do is take the spear and drop it in the prefabs folder over here. And Unity recognizes this folder to use prefabs. So once we do that, we can delete it from our game. So now we can always call on this prefab. Let me show you an example. Let's say I select this prefab and I put it here. It shows up again. So it's just there to save for us to use later. So now I'll go on player and move, where is it? The weapon script. And we'll drag this prefab, put it here. So now it will create the bullet. All right, so let's see if everything works by pressing play. We'll move. Now if I press the space, now it just moves and stops. Okay, now let us see what we've done wrong. It's from the spear script. What we forgot to do is assign the rigid body for movement. So it just creates it and stays there because we didn't assign the movement. So here, where we see RB, that's where we take this rigid body up here. So we just click on it, drag it here, and we'll change let's put the bullet damage to be like 50. So now, let's see, we press play again. Let me try there. Now you see it moves. Now you can shoot the arrow as you want. Oh. Now we have a problem which it only shoots right. All right, let's solve that one. What we forgot to do is in the player script, as we saw earlier, whenever we flip the player, it actually has to flip the weapon holder as well. So we forgot to add that part. So over, where is it? Yes, here, weapon holder, we forgot to assign. Move this, put it there. Now let us see if it works as it should. I move, shoot that way. Yes, now I can shoot. All right. Do we have any questions?
None on the chats.
All right. Okay. So let me move to the slides. Yes, so we applied all these different things. We made it a trigger object, and this just describes what the script do. Next, we're gonna do a platform. That's the point of a platformer game, to have platforms to jump on. So now we're gonna make different size platforms, like 1 block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, and 4 blocks. And all they need are box colliders, and just as we did with the ground. So now we're gonna start making let me go to sprites and add our rock platform. This would be one of the platforms. So we're gonna create different size platforms and put them into the prefab so that we can just put as many platforms we want later on. So we're going to create an empty. I'm gonna call this one, I'll call it platform 1, because it will only have 1 block. And I'll just move this platform into it. And similar to the way we created the ground, we're just gonna, okay, here. And we're just gonna put the platforms into a separate place. So I'm just gonna make it 0 so it starts from here, and that one is done. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select platform 1, duplicate it, gonna rename it platform 2. So it'll be a platform with 2 pieces. Then I'm gonna duplicate this one and change it to 1 instead. Just move it out of the way. Select this, move it so you can see we have 2 platforms now. So now I'm gonna duplicate platform 2 and add an extra one as we've done. Duplicate, name it to platform 3. Duplicate, add 1 more, and make it 2. Now we have another platform 3 here. Now I'm going to take platform 3 and make a platform with the same process. Duplicate, change this to 3. Now, yes, now we have our 4 different platforms. So now each of these platforms require a box collider as we added before. So I'll just add box colliders. This one is 1, so it's fine. Platform 2. And you add the box collider to the elements, the group elements itself, not to the individuals. So I'm going to add here. Edit it, make it 2. You can change the offset here to 2. Here. Yeah, all right. As you can see, the green line covers all of it. Do the same for the others. Change the size to 3. Then we're gonna move this for it to cover. Now one. Make it size 4. Move this to the center of it, which is around 1.5. All right, so we have our platforms now. So we're gonna create our prefabs. Gonna drag each of these, and once you see a blue box next to the objects, it means they're prefabs now. So adding the last one. So now that we have all the prefabs here, now we can delete the rest over here. So now, as we move, now let's randomly place the platforms we want. This is the fun part, so you get to design the level as you want. So I'm just gonna keep selecting from the prefabs here and just placing them. Let's say I have one here. One here. Here. All right. So let's play the game, and let's just see if the user can jump on the platform. Jump. Because of the box colliders can jump on them. Nice. Oh, knocked over. This is something we need to change. Now he's jumping from his head. Here we go. Oh, knocked over. All right. So we can change that, the player rotating. If we go to rigid body and we go to constraints and we tick freeze rotation over here. So it prevents the user from turning around. Let's just see again. Just do these. Oh, unable to do that one. I can't reach them. All right, so we've gotten the platforms down. Any questions?
Yeah, none on the chat.
All right, so as you can see from this side, we're starting to have many elements here. So we just want to clean it up a bit and maybe just, organize. So I'm just going to add certain empty elements, and this will be an element to store all the platforms. I'll just call it underscore platforms. Now I'm going to select each of the platforms here, all of them, and I'll just put them in the platforms. Doesn't change any of the visual things, just to organize it. I'll put this here. And I'll do the same for the backgrounds. Just move all these background elements just to tidy up our game. All right. So the next thing we're going to approach is the animals, the enemies of the game. And all of them work similar to the player, only that they don't move by themselves. They're just gonna stand stationary for now. So what they need is a box collider, rigid body, and their respective animal scripts. And we're gonna introduce a concept called tags. And we're gonna also do all the different things they shoot. All right. Now I'm going to start adding the different animals. So let me find my sprites. I'm gonna start with our cattle. Put them over here. Let's just make and rename the cattle. So we have a cattle here, and the cattle, like the player, is gonna have a box collider. Box collider and a rigid body. All right. Let me just click on the zoom in on the cattle. Now I'm gonna resize it as usual. All right. And now the rigid body, well, since our player's mass was 1, the cows weigh a bit heavier, so I'll just say it has a mass of 3. I don't know if that's accurate, but we'll just estimate. Also change its collision to continuous and interpolate and freeze rotation. It doesn't tip over. So after we have the cattle, we're gonna click on the cattle and create an empty object. This would be our milk holder. Since the cows will shoot milk holder or an udder. And just go on the cow, the udder. I'm gonna move it to the front. Even though it comes from its udder, I'll just move it to where its mouth is. All right. Now for the cow, as you see in the sprite renderer, you can actually flip which direction the cow is facing. So I'm just gonna flip the X so it faces that direction. Oh, actually no, I'm gonna keep it like this for now. So now I'm gonna go to the script and go to cattle script. I'm gonna add it to the cattle. And I'm also gonna take the weapon script as we added with the player before and also add that one to the cattle. So now let me open the cattle script, some brief descriptions. And this cattle script is the same as the ox and the mammoth script. So the only thing that changes is the different properties like shooting time, like how often it will shoot out milk, and how much health they have. So maybe other bosses have the other enemies have like bigger health, more health. You maybe need more things, more spears to shoot them down. So all this does is it's an automated shooting. So let's say every 3 seconds the cow shoots milk. So it only checks when it's gonna shoot, which would be every 2 seconds, and that you see that from wait for next shot or wait for next shoot. Yeah. So that once it shoots, it waits for 3 seconds and shoots again. And as the player had before, with the get hit method, it just checks if the health is less than 0, then you destroy the object. The cow is dead. And it would just shoot occasionally. Most of the script is the same. So now let's take our milk. Where is our cow's cattle milk here? We have it here. And we're gonna make this a prefab as well. So it's just gonna have the component of gonna have the box collider, which is trigger, and change the size quickly. Get it smaller. Here. All right. And now we're gonna add our rigid body as well. I'll make some mass, like say 0.2. Freeze, rotation, continuous, interpolate, gravity scale. This one I will change the gravity scale, make it fall a bit faster. So I'll say 0.3, for example. All right. Now I forgot to rename it to milk. And the last thing we add to it is the enemy bullet, which is similar to the normal bullet that the spear uses, but the difference is it will only detect if it hits a player rather than if it hits anything else. So with that, I should grab the rigid body, add it here. I'm gonna make the speed a bit smaller, like 10. And the damage, I'll make it 34. All right, so now I'm gonna make this a prefab quickly. Go, and I can delete this. Now on the cattle, I'm gonna go to the cattle script. I'm gonna move the utter to the where is it? Yes, the cattle script. I'm gonna assign the W holder, which is the weapon holder, which is the utter. I'm gonna put that in here. It's not picking up. Oh, sorry. I put the wrong thing. I should put the cattle here. All right. And I'll put the utter over here, fire point. And the bullet prefab, which is the milk, I'll put it here. And I'll actually make it have infinite ammo, so it'll just keep on shooting. All right, let me just see if this, okay, now I'm gonna flip it this direction just to see. Let me see if it's working. Can't tell. One. Oh yes, one thing I need to add is the concept of tags. So what tags are is just the different things we can use to notice if it's a player or if it's, let's say, a cattle that's being hit by the bullet. So what we're gonna do is go on the milk. I'm gonna select milk from the prefabs here. I'm gonna go on tag right under the name over here. And I'm going to add a tag. And so far, tags are empty. So I'm gonna add a tag for each and every element. So I'm gonna have one called, let me start with the things that they shoot. We'll have the milk. We'll have the water. We'll have horns. And then the enemies themselves, we'll have the cattle. We have the ox. lamps. And those are the ones we have so far. All right. Now, if I go on the, oh, I forgot to add the spear. Add another tag. All right. And so I'll start with the player. The player will have the tag of just player. And you set the tags here. So I'm going to take the cattle, set its tag to cattle. Go to our prefabs, set the spear to spear, milk to milk. All right. Let me just make sure I didn't miss anything. Everything is assigned. Okay, let me see if things work. Hopefully they do. Okay, it's shut backwards. Oh, apparently you can knock our cow. Let me just shoot the cow, see if anything happens. Yes, we shot the cow and it dies. So that's something that's missing. You see. Speed on the cattle. Oh, I set the shooting time to 20 seconds, so that's why it wasn't shooting. So let me send it to, let's see what. Let me play. Okay, it shoots. See, now it's shooting constantly, although from its behind. So let me just flip it back. And now I'm going to drag the cattle, and I'm going to make it a prefab now, so that I can place many different ones. All right. Let me put it here. And I don't know if it will still come back from its back. Yeah, it still hits from the back. All right, so let's just test if the cattle, we shoot it, dead now. All right. Okay, any questions while I try to figure why it shoots from its behind?
None at the moment.
Question,
Yeah.
Mike.
Oh, someone has a question. Yes.
All right.
No question from my side.
Yeah. All right. Let me just see if everything is set as it should. And let me just check. All right. What we're going to do to solve the problem of it coming out of its butt is I will flip it back to face right. Then what I'll do is udder. Yeah, it's facing this direction. What I'll do is actually take the whole cattle and rotate it. So I'm gonna rotate it on the y-axis. Let me first see. Yeah. So if you rotate the cattle on its y-axis to 180, just to flip the other way, then if you go to udder, you can see now the udder is facing this direction as well. So whenever you add different cattle, for example, say I add one there. I'll add another one somewhere here. This one will face this direction. And another one up here. So now, if I change the direction of this one, I should go to 180. All right. And what I'll change now is on the cattle, just so that the player can be able to actually move the cattle. I'll change its weight to like 10. All right. Let's see if they. Yes, now you can see the cattle are just shooting everywhere. And he can actually get hit by the milk. Oh, now the player is gone because it was hit by the milk. Let me run it again. Now let me try and defeat the cattle. Yes, got that one. Oh, got hit. Oh. Don't know if I'll be able to reach that one. Yeah, I can't get to that one. But we've got the essence of it. So we'll be applying the way we did the cattle, we'll be doing it to all the others as well. So, yes, any further questions? All right. Now let's see how far we've gone. Yes, so the last thing we're gonna do is add a collectible to complete the level. So gonna use this thing like fire at the top so that when you collect it, maybe you've gone past all the enemies and you collect it at the top, then it will be game over. So that's how we're gonna do it. So now I'm gonna add something. Let me just let me find the fire we'll use, which will just use the water we use for the mana. See, what I'll do is just call this one fire instead. Fire. What we'll do to this one, just move it on top here. Gonna rotate it. So I'll say by rotate it this way. Rotate it on the Z axis by 90. Negative 90. Yes. So I just change it over there. It over here. It's not gonna move, so all I'll add is a collider, a box collider. All right, let me just edit it. Once the user touches the fire, it will be able to win the game. Change this. Get bigger. Yeah, something like that. All right. Now this one could also be a trigger. Oh no, yes. And what we're going to done. Let me find. Yes. All right. Now let me just zoom out So we're going to add some script to the player. Yes, you find the player script here. What we'll do is gonna go to the bottom and add, just start typing on collision enter, and you'll see over here that the collision enter 2D, collision enter 2D, this one, now to generate for you. So what we're gonna check is similar to if we get the collision here, zoom in, we're gonna check if the collision we get has a tag, collision.collider.tag add the tag later, equal to, call it fire tag. Now let's just test if it would work. So we're gonna write debug.log level complete. Right. Now I'm gonna go on fire. Sorry. Get add a tag called fire and set this tag to fire. So for now, just to not have way too much time, I'm going to move. Just gonna move this over here just to see if it works. All right. And whenever you do code that says debug.log, it's gonna appear in this section, in the console section over here. So now let me just test to see if it works. Move here. Log. Oh, it didn't appear. I think I missed something. Oh, all right. We forgot that this actually checks the, see, we made the fire a trigger, so we actually use a different function for that one. Instead of, sorry, apologize. We actually use on trigger enter 2D. Just click on it and it'll generate it. So we actually say, similar to the one before, if collision dot tag fire, do the same thing. Okay. Let us see. Yes. So now you can see from our log over here, it says level complete. So it means we've triggered it. All right. So do you have any questions on that part? So for now, I'm just going to move it back to the top so that we can actually try and play the game. Back on top here. there's some platforms that are too high. We can play this now. While I play this, you guys are free to ask any questions.
No questions on my side.
There we go. All right, we've completed the level. We've won the game. Yay. All right. So I'll leave we're essentially done for now. We can just add the different, in the same way we added the kettle to adding a prefab. We do it the same way for the different elements like the mammoth and the ox. And you can just change the values of their weights and their gravity. And yeah, they work the same way as the cattle. You just change the values according to how often they shoot things or how far they shoot things. So for now, I'm just going to change the colors of these different things. So because here, after this, one more thing I can add is that if the player gets shot by the things, that it would say game over. So I'll just add the player script. Get hit. Yes. So when it gets hit and it dies, it should say debug. Game over. Like that. And another thing we would add for whenever the player something dies, for example, the player gets hit and it dies, or if any of the animals get hit, that we can add different animations, like maybe if they fall down and then they disappear or something like that. So that's something we can add for the next time to work on animations and the sound. So make sure this happens when the player gets hit. Wait for this to hit. Yes. So now you can see it says game over. Oof. All right. The reason it keeps showing all these is because one of our scripts is still trying to access the player even though it disappeared. So that's why it has all these errors. But usually when the player is down, it would have a screen that says like game over and the game stops. So yeah, that's something we'll work on next time. All right, so the floor is open for any questions or suggestions. So till then, I will just change some of the colors here because we are complete with part 1. So the floor is open for any questions. Thank you for participating. I'm just gonna go to where we mentioned the colors. Some of those colors. See. I'll change it from the preset. Change the background color. think I'll use a light color. Just this one. So one way to get color is if you go on the color side here, click on this white box and choose the color you want. So you change the background of the thing. Or you can use this little ink thing next to the color. Once you press it, it will wait for you to choose a color somewhere on the screen. So that's how I'm going to use to get the colors on the right over here. So I'm going to use, click on this, and I'll use this color. Let me see how it looks. Okay, clashing with our characters. Something darker. Okay, choose this one. Yeah, now it's quite dark, and you're able to see all the characters clearly. Lastly, for the platforms, I'll change. Okay, I'll go to the sprites and go to rock platform here, and I'll change the color. Here. Oh, actually not from here. Go to the prefabs. Go to the prefabs, press on that, and then change the color here. This to the side. Let's see, I think I'll use a color. Use something dark. I'll use this. Quickly see how it looks. All right, it kind of clashes, so let me make it lighter. Click this. Click this. This one. It's a bit better. I'll just make it even lighter. Go with this one. Yeah, that's a bit better. So I'll apply that to all the different platforms. And you can do that from the prefab. So just take this, change the color. All right, the 3. And the 4. Change it here. All right. All our platforms look like that. And I'll just change the ground. Select all the elements on the ground. Change their color. This time I think I'll use whatever the prefabs were. So I'll go here, select the platform, select the color, and take this hexadecimal. Copy it. That's what I'll use for all of these. Change this color over here. Alright, so now our game looks uniform. Oh, I forgot to change the other colors of the background. So, do the same. Copy that. Close this. Apply to all of these. There we go. our game is looking better. All right. Jump over. Now we collected that. Says level complete. All right. That's done from my part.
Okay. How far are you? Almost done?
Yeah, we're done.
Okay. Anyone has anything to add? Vanisha, anything you would like to add?
No. This was quite interesting because before this I didn't know how to. I only played around with 3D game, not 2D game, so this is going to be interesting to make by the end of it. So this is obviously to Evostoria part 1, and we still got 2 more to complete the 2D game, complete game. We have some comments.
All right, Macy.
I suppose you might just get questioned maybe after once they actually try it out themselves.
All right.
Mm.
All right. I could see the comments. Awesome. Really enjoyed the vid. Yes. I like that you learned something.
Cool. This was quite a long video. I think the longest we've had.
Yeah. This is why we had to break it up.
So it's gonna take me a while to upload this, but I will.
All right.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything?
All good from me.
Okay. Cool. I'd like to thank you for having this workshop, and I'd like to thank everyone who participated and got to this. We'll upload more videos on our YouTube channel and Facebook page. So we're gonna gear up for our next workshop. I'm done saying what I have to say.
All right. All right. I just want to thank everyone for attending. Really hope you learned something from this and that you can also go get creative and add all your different elements that you want to add to your game. And this is just to get the basic functionality, and it's really up to your creative side on how you want to make the game. So yes, thank you for attending. We hope to see you in the next workshop.
Yeah, I think we can end it. Should I?
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.